I sent my sister's boyfriend proof of her cheating with my husband, but now my parents think I'm heartless. Life with a sibling is supposed to be fun, you get to be there for each other. But for me, it was quite the opposite. Growing up with a younger sister that was better at everything than you was hard, especially if your parents clearly favored the younger one. My sister and I have a 4-year age gap, but that never stopped her from looking down at me at any chance she got. We were never really close and my parents were partially to blame for it. She was their golden child, something that they never failed to remind me of every day. So I worked hard to make them proud of me, only it was never enough for them. According to them, I was always a step behind her. I stopped chasing after their validation after a while. But my sister, Stella, never gave up making my life a mess. She had this obsession with wanting the same things I had, and she made sure to get them even if it meant throwing me aside in the process. First, it was my position at school, then my hobbies, and she even took my friends by spreading false rumors. What made it even worse was the fact that my parents never blamed her for any of it and pushed me to be like her. When I moved out of my house, I was relieved. I was finally able to be my own person without the fear of comparison from my parents or Stella's manipulation. I found someone not long after. He was a wonderful man that made my heart skip a beat. Everything was going well until Stella found her way into my life again. I was skeptical when she wanted to hang out more with me. I knew the real Stella, so I kept a distance. She was adamant about meeting my boyfriend. Even though I had feared her taking him away from me, I was confident about him and our relationship, so I agreed. Stella and my boyfriend got close really fast, but I decided to keep my doubts at bay. A few years later, we got married and got our own place. Since he was unemployed at the time, the apartment was under my name and I paid for it and all his expenses, which continued even when he got a job. Stella was quite flirty around him, which was pretty normal for her in any case. One day, when I met with my family for lunch, she admitted that she wanted to work at the same company as me since it was always her dream. I told her to go for it, but that wasn't it. My parents then said that they wanted me to make sure that she got her dream position at my company. Even though I was in a higher position, exploiting my power to get my sister into the company seemed wrong and unethical of me, so instead, I said that I would help her with the interview and other preparations. But they were furious. Stella started shedding fake tears and my parents were quick to label me as the heartless sister. It was around the same time that I had to undergo a hysterectomy or uterus removal surgery. It was a difficult time for me both physically and mentally. My PID had gotten painful, so there was no other option but to go ahead with the surgery. My husband and I had dreamt of kids, and when I heard the news, I was devastated. The thought of being unable to bear children was something that made me emotionally and physically weak for a while after the surgery. Meanwhile, my husband was supportive in the beginning. But it didn't last long. The change was sudden. He had gone from caring to indifferent to me. It seemed like he would rather be anywhere than with me. He was harsh and angry at me all the time since then. I was confused and clueless. Almost a month went by after the surgery, and one day, he never came home. I waited and waited, but there was no sign of him and he wasn't taking my calls. I panicked and called his close friends, who answered that he would be home and not to worry. I was about to report to the police, but they convinced me not to and asked me to wait. So I did. There was no response from him. That week, I had to go on a business trip. I wanted to stay home and search for him, but my colleagues insisted that I come, so I went. My mind was blank the whole time during business meetings. Whenever I got the chance, I kept looking at the feed from my security cameras that I had fitted at my apartment after he ran away. The next day, I casually looked at the video when I spotted my sister getting into my apartment with her bags. She was unpacking her things and settling into my home as if her own. I tried calling her, but she ignored my calls. My mom must have informed her about my trip. I kept my mind calm until I noticed a familiar figure walk into my home. Lo and behold, my runaway husband was back home embracing my sister. They appeared really close, and soon, they got into one of the rooms and shut the door. I felt the door shut on my life. I tried calling them, but they both ignored my calls. I felt betrayed, helpless and angry, for letting my sister back in my life and trusting my husband. After learning about my husband and my sister's affair, I was out of it for the whole week of my business trip. I was still processing it, and I restricted myself from doing anything rash in the meantime. When I came back home, my sister was behaving like she normally did, but I could see through her pretense. As expected, my husband was with her at my home. They were surprised to see me home early. I asked my husband why he ran off, and he said that we wanted space and looked guilty. I confronted Stella about her betraying me, and she strongly refused the idea. But when I showed her the security camera footage, she seemed to panic. Guess they hadn't thought of that before. All hell broke loose when my husband started claiming that it was my fault he became distant. He confessed that he found comfort in Stella when I couldn't satisfy him anymore. I was heartbroken, but I kept my expression in check. Stella even joined him in adding to my faults. My blood was boiling by that time, and without thinking I asked them to get out. I pulled up Stella's boyfriend's contact and sent him the CCTV footage of them together, hoping at least he got to get out of this unhurt. A few months ago, when my parents had asked me to get Stella a job at my company, I tried really hard to get her into the top 2 applicants from the interview by convincing and begging my bosses. Without losing another second, I called my manager and politely asked him to not consider Stella as my sister and evaluate her performance based on just her competence. I was sure she wouldn't get in without my help. I felt better doing that, but somehow, I can't help but feel that I'm the reason for all this drama. Am I the a-hole for cutting my sister off from my life? Update 1. Stella's boyfriend contacted me after I sent him the video and told me that he didn't want to be with a cheater and broke up with her. Soon after that, my parents and my sister came to know that she didn't get the job and were angry with me. I explained to my parents how she betrayed me by being with my husband, but they were more focused on how I didn't help her get the job. Stella started cursing me and calling me names for ruining her career and relationship, although I'm not sure which relationship she was mentioning. I walked out of there and decided not to contact them for quite a while. Update 2. My husband never tried to call me or text me after that. I wanted to get closure before we ended things, so I met him at his friend's house, where he directly told me that he wasn't attracted to me anymore and that he fell out of love. I tried not to show any emotion and stated that I was going to file for a divorce. When I told him that he should move out of our house shortly, he was surprised and wanted me to give him his share of the apartment's money since he also contributed. If by the contribution he meant decorations, that would have made more sense. He refused to understand the fact that he never contributed money for the house, so he wasn't going to get a share of the house. When I left him, I realized how he was more interested in trying to get back to the apartment than clearing things between us. He never even apologized for cheating on me and behaved as if it was a normal thing. Update 3. We officially divorced and I became single again, which feels free, to be honest. It had been a long time since I was single and independent, so it took some time to get used to, but it was worth it. My ex-husband soon relocated to another city since things didn't work out with him and Stella. I wonder why. Stella was jobless and stayed with my parents, who had stopped nagging me since they started getting a glimpse of Stella's true nature. As for me, I got a great promotion at my job and started enjoying life a bit more by myself, which is more impressive than I had imagined. I'm 18 male, just started at uni for the first time, and it's been 2 weeks since teaching started. Our class for one of the core subjects has around 40 people, niche degree, so it's split into 2 tutor groups that have tutorials separately, and we all have practicals together. One group is led by the main professor, who runs the practical sessions as well, Hess, an older guy, and the other one is led by a female grad student who also comes to the practicals and helps the professor run them too. Also, the cohort is 38 boys and 2 girls. As we were leaving our first practical this week, my coursemate said something like, "Oh, I hope the grad student will run classes as well as a professor." Another mate said that he's read some of the grad student's experiment outlines and that she's really good at niche area we're interested in. Just casual talk, so as a kind of joke I replied that I hope I get put into the grad students group because she was really hot and I'd love some one-on-one sessions with her. You know, just riffing off how you can do one-on-one tutorials if you're struggling. It was a joke. I'm not saying it was a good thing to say, but you'd be lying if you didn't admit you never found someone teaching you attractive. I made sure she wasn't in earshot, but the professor was, and he gave me a kind of nasty look, which was fair, I suppose. I get home and find out to my joy I am in the grad students class, but the next day I get a notification that my timetable changed and now I'm in the class run by the professor. I assumed it was just an ordinary switch for technical reasons and didn't care, but after the first tutorial the professor asked me to stay back and told me the reason he reassigned me to his group was because of the unacceptable comments I made about the grad student. It turns out she was his student, she works in his project, and he probably felt protective of her. He started giving me a lecture about how it was completely unacceptable to make those types of comments about staff in a public teaching space. We were exiting a lecture hall. I apologized, but said he was unprofessional for switching my class just for a joke, and that the joke wasn't even that bad since she was only a few years older than us anyway. My justification is, if you're a young the a-hole teaching in a heavily male environment, you learn to ignore comments from idiotic joker blokes like us. I'm not proud of this, but I accused him of white knighting for her and that she wouldn't even have known if he hadn't told her, so he was the person who made her uncomfortable. He then said I was the one who needed to learn to behave like I'm at a reputable university, and told me that he would report me if I said anything like that in front of him again. My friends agree with me, but when I mentioned it to my sister, she took the professor's side. Which one of us is the a-hole? My grandma, 65 female, and I, 21 male, get along really well. She is amazing, I love her and look up to her, that's why my perspective can be biased and need some points of views to know if I am fed up. Grandma had 5 children, my dad 43 male, my uncle T 42 male, my uncle M 35 male, my aunt F 47 female and my aunt S 30 female, with grandpa, 66 male. Grandpa was a terrible father and a garbage husband, an alcoholic who spent all his money on liquor, never supported grandma while she worked very hard to provide for her kids as a baker. She got tired of it and kicked him out in the 90s. She stayed as single mom and only provider. Did he pay child support? No. Did he help her buy a house for his kids? No. Did he ask for custody or try to spend time with his kids? No. He only visited once in a blue moon. Grandma and grandpa never divorced since my grandma didn't believe in it, and she was always a single mother. My grandma started dating William, 67 male, 2 years ago, but she didn't introduce him to her kids because she was afraid of their reaction and I was the only one who knew about the affair. Grandma announced that she was moving to William's house this past July and everyone was furious and started accusing her of cheating and that she was choosing her affair partner over her own kids. She was even hesitant about moving in with William, but I encouraged her because he makes her happy and he is a nice man. It's been almost 2 months and they refuse to talk to her or have low contact with her and that is hurting her. She asked my grandpa for a divorce and he got mad at her and accused her of cheating. They were talking crap about her, they 6 at a family dinner, thus I told them to grow up and stop acting like kids since they are not. I told them that they should be happy about their mom's happiness because that woman dedicated her life to make life easier for them and it's so unfair that they crap on her while praising my grandpa, who had girlfriends by the way. They all called me the a-hole for not taking their feelings into consideration and they say that something doesn't feel right about their mom dating at this age. They accuse her of cheating but that isn't cheating. They haven't been together for around 25 years. My grandpa had couple of girlfriends, yes, they were mad at him too, but it's time to grow up. Am I the a-hole for telling them to grow up? I think they need to understand that their parents ain't getting back together, in case they have a hope, and that grandma has a right to be happy. I mean she did her job already without any help.